Hey, it's Jer, and this is your Daily Detroit for Monday, September 21st, 2020. Today, two things. Well, more than two, but I'm talking to two people. First, Erin Allen from the Detroit Podcast Festival joins me to preview that event, highlighting creators and sharing knowledge right here in the Motor City. As a podcaster, of course, I'm excited about it. Then, the big fall NISA soccer tournament starts tonight. Fletcher Sharpe breaks down what's ahead for Detroit City FC this week, as well as weighs in on the retirement of Tigers manager Ron Gardenhire and the Lions. Well, you know what happened. Let's just get right to it. Joining me virtually is Erin Allen. She is the executive producer of the Detroit Podcast Festival. You can figure, since you're listening to a podcast, I'm pretty excited to talk about this. Erin, welcome to Daily Detroit.
Thank you, Jer, for having me.
I want to talk about this because you open up the website for the Detroit Podcast Festival, and I went to, I think, one event last year. I really wish I had went to more. I plan on checking out some stuff this year, but you open up this website, and I got to tell you, this thing is very Detroit-y, as I like to say, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah. It's so Detroit, right? Detroit is everything. That's really what we wanted to give off. We have a really great graphic designer who, we talked it over with the look and feel, and I was like, I want this to be all Detroit everything. The whole purpose is to uplift the voices and stories, and this year with the conference, expertise of Metro Detroiters and folks who also believe that Detroit is everything.
Yeah, it seems like there was a lot of intention around its relevance, whether you're talking about the design and also the lineup. It really seems to be worked with intention about lifting up Detroit voices, which I just think is so important to do. One of the beautiful things about podcasts and independent media is that it's something where if you're a good storyteller, the bridge to get there with a little help from your friends, you can make something beautiful happen.
Yes. Oh my God. That's so well put. And that's exactly what has happened from everything from, even starting with our team, right? These folks, they really came together organically through just connections that I have in the city and folks that were like, oh, I think that Ashley Dandridge would be really good for this, or I think that Danielle would be really good for this. And so from that point to the actual lineup, right? My work with WDT, a colleague's work with Michigan Radio, Motor City Woman and Audio Wave Network have been sponsors and just been involved in the conference and the festival space for so long since we started, along with so many other people on the lineup, just people who are Detroiters, Metro Detroiters, who are making media, who a lot of people don't even know that we have all these podcasts here in Detroit, Jer, which is amazing. It was really important for me to really begin to work with, as much as Detroit Podcast Festival can be on the map, to bring those voices with it.
Well, I feel like it fulfills a long-standing tradition of Detroit making great things for people's ears, whether it's music or, people forget about the impact that even news and journalism have had over the years. And you look at stations like WDT that are powerhouses around reporting. I'm just glad to see that kind of step through and some of the names in there. I think about Shannon Kaysen, who just is a excellent storyteller. Another person on the lineup, I've got, of course, toot their horn because they've been on the show a few times, Laura Khalil. If I don't mention the person who comes on our show sometimes, I know I'm going to get an email later,
Yeah, of course.
But what are some of the other ones that we really need to pay attention to? Of course, there's the Detroit History podcast, but who else do we need to be listening to?
Yeah, I'm really excited about the Detroit History podcast. They've got a great workshop around mining the past for audio. What do you do if you can't find that really old audio piece that you really want to feature in your story? But, another one I'm excited about is the Brown sisters are bringing their podcast, How to Survive the End of the World. So they're going to interview some folks from the Justice Center and PG with Detroit, Black Bottom narratives of Detroit. And so that's really good. I work with Allied Media Projects, and this is like that Allied Media, social justice, and media realm that I'm really excited to bring into it. WDT, as I mentioned, doing some food conversations, some conversations about multimedia with COVID Diaries and Andalisi of the WDT Food Essential Cooking Podcast. Yeah, so Michigan Radio, we've got a lot of local public radio folks. Bryce Huffman is going to be talking about making podcast conversations seem effortless, which I hope we're doing right now. And then there's 4 main subject areas that we're focusing on with the conference. Some people like to call them tracks. They're not arranged as tracks, but you can call them tracks for all intents and purposes. The one is marketing. We have one that's called branded podcasting. This is for all of the, media mavericks, people who are working maybe at an organization or a company doing communications and marketing, and they're wondering, how can I leverage podcasting to really advance our brand, our marketing, and the message that we're really trying to share? That's one thing that I'm really excited about. That is setting the tone for a lot of the marketing content that we're bringing to the conference. The second piece that we're focusing on is storytelling. Tariq Luthan is a local but also Emmy Award-winning poet, and he's a storyteller and activist. And I'm really excited. He's going to be talking about storyscaping and how to really bring your authenticity and your story into whatever media you're creating, whether it is actually telling your story on stage, doing a comedy performance, or doing a podcast. The third is podcast production. So we're focusing on, okay, what are the top mistakes? G. Marie Gabrielle is going to be talking about, what are the top mistakes she's come across as a person who produces her own podcast and just started from zero. Laura Khalil is another one who's in that realm of, getting a top 125 podcast on the iTunes charts. And then a fourth piece is the live conversations. That's the Adrienne Marie Brown. We'll have a conversation with Essential Cooking, the podcast. Shop Talk is another conversation series that happens out of a local, really dope barbershop called the Social Club Grooming Co. And then another thing I'll mention is, folks don't want to be on screen, and we know that it's important to gather content and gather information, but to do it on screen all day can be really daunting and exhausting. And so in the middle of the day, October 16th through the 18th, all 3 days, we have the option to do a dance break. Dope Candy is a Detroit born and bred DJ who's going to do an hour of music just to give people a chance to take a break and dance in the middle of the conference. Also, Live Cycle Delight is a cycling and yoga wellness studio in Detroit. They're going to provide a meditation session in the middle of each day as well.
Well, that all sounds really cool. One of the things that I wanted to talk about, though, is that getting to this virtually is pretty accessible this year. And can you talk about why you're doing this sliding scale ticket? I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thanks for asking about that. So tickets are available this year on a sliding scale from $25 to $200. We have 3 full days of content, right? So if you were to actually go to this conference in person, you'd be around for all day, right? 3 days. And that's really how rich the content is. And we really want to make that accessible to most people, right? Media makers run the gamut. They may be at a company doing marketing, or they may be an independent person just starting out who may have lost their job because of COVID, or, maybe wasn't working at all. So to give a full weekend of virtual conference to folks has been really important to us. And so that is available at the $25 level. If you're able, right? If you are coming from an organization that is going to cover your cost, right? Or if you can pay $100, $200, the true value of this conference, we're hoping for that as well. And so I'm just really wanting to open it up because I know, right now, a lot of people have fallen upon hard times, and, we're really fortunate to be able to still put on this festival, and we really want to make it accessible for folks.
Well, Erin Allen, Detroit Podcast Festival, thanks so much for spending some time with us. I encourage people to check it out at DetroitPodcastFest.com. Of course, I will put a link to the show notes. Just a pleasure to talk with you today.
Thank you, Jared. Great talking to you as well.
Joining us virtually, and if you hear a little bit of sounds in the background, that's because Mr. Fletcher Sharpe is outside to tell us about what's going on with sports around town. We've got 3 main things that we want to talk about: Tigers, Lions, and of course, Detroit City FC. Fletcher, let's get into the first thing, which is going to be Ron Gardenhire. He has retired as the Tigers manager. I know you have some thoughts around it. It was a move that happened, I think, a little bit earlier than people expected, being that it's midseason.
He said he'd be retired at the end of the season. And honestly, I think he might have thought that they might be competing for playoff position, which technically they still are. They're 3.5 out of the 8th seed, so it's not the end of the world. They probably won't catch the 8th seed, the Toronto Blue Jays, but there's a chance they could. But honestly, the type of manager Ron Gardenhire is, when he managed the Twins teams were decent. They weren't great. They had 1.5 stars with Joe Mauer and half of Justin Morneau. But the reason why I liked Ron Gardenhire is he could take a team of 7-year-olds and get them to play against major league players and lose by just a little bit. He gets the best out of his players, And that's like an admirable trait as a coach. That's like the true mark of like this person really knows how to coach and how to motivate, is they get the best out of their players. So when the Tigers hired him, I was like, this Tigers team is not very good, but they could probably do some damage with him as a manager because he'll get the best out of them the best he can. And he's done the best he could with what he has. I mean, they haven't, really sniffed playoff position much, but they've been trying. I think, honestly, it just got to the point to where his health is like, look, to manage like this, it takes a lot out of you. And I think he just realized, like, I can't do it at the rate anymore. And I'd rather just stop now than go to the end of the season and, have something worse happen. And honestly, hats off to him for doing that, because it's during this trying time, it's best to look out for your own health when you can, rather than try to stretch it thin to try to do something that might not happen in the end.
Well, I think it's a really classy move to duck out when you know it's time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So pivoting on to the Lions, because the Lions, it is what it is. I mean, were there any bright spots that you can think of about this thing, or are we just 0-2 and in a lot of trouble?
We were 0-1 in a lot of trouble, but the Lions scored first at Lambeau Field, which was a bright spot because I did not think that was going to happen. They were up 7-0. Then they got to be 7-3. I watched a bit more of the game, and then I had to go play softball. And then when I got to the field to stretch and warm up, one of the people there had a big TV to like watch the game. I looked at the score, and the Packers had 42 points. And I was like, what happened? And they're like, they collapsed like normal. And I was like, okay. That's all I needed to know. And I looked over through some replays and highlights, and they very much collapsed like normal. So I don't know. As someone said, Patriots Midwest, as the Lions have been known to be called now, is a failure. And to back that up with numbers, because I know people really like stats. Through their first 34 games, the last Lions head coach, tweeted by John Neo, Rod Marinelli was 10-24. He was fired at the end of the year. Jim Schwartz was 10-24. He was fired at the end of the year as well. Jim Caldwell was 19-15. Currently, Matt Patricia is 9-24-1. So the last four coaches, we remember when Rod Marinelli was like bad. He had like the ghost of John Kitten as his quarterback, but he was bad. Jim Schwartz was okay for 1 year, but he was bad the other years. This guy right now is doing worse than both of those guys. And that's saying something, because like I stopped being a Lions fan under Jim Schwartz.
Is it just bad hiring and bad coaches, or is it just across the board? Because it just seems like the Lions can't seem to get a decent coach and keep them very long. And then when they have a decent coach, they get rid of them.
Honestly, the thing that really struck me is with Jim Schwartz, it was just a bad fit. Like he wanted to be a hard-nosed team, and he just could not get the players for it. Rod Marinelli, I don't know. Like he was a defensive coach that couldn't defend, kind of like Matt Patricia. I know with Jim Caldwell, he got the proper pieces. His problem was discipline, quote unquote, where I've never been one to like fault the head coach when players are picking up personal fouls. Like, yes, I understand it's a culture of like allowing certain things, but also everyone's an adult. You're not going to tell a grown man not to get mad at a play. If he's really that mad about it, he's going to go get a personal foul. You can fine him, you can lead him off the field, but like to hold him accountable for a personal foul call that's mouthing off to the referee or something, like that's kind of weird. He really got fired because that last game against the New Orleans Saints in the playoffs, the game we all thought we were going to lose anyways, the Lions unraveled emotionally and picked up like a few more personal fouls than they should have. And yeah, I understand that's like very questionable. Would you rather have that team, or would you rather have the team we have right now? With Matt Patricia, the problem with the Lions is they've been trying to copy off the Patriots and like do a bunch of stuff that they're doing scheme wise and offensive wise. And like in order to be good in leagues, you don't copy off other teams. You like create your own style, maybe borrow some stuff from people, but you create your own innovative style. And the Lions are basically trying to become the Patriots by picking up players who maybe didn't do well at the Patriots, maybe did okay at the Patriots, and trying to plug them in as starters here. And it's not working. It's showing that these players are not capable of being stars on their own. And as a result of trying to put an offense around them, they're crumbling. I really don't know at this point when Patricia's going to go. They might let him finish out his contract. They might fire him in 2 weeks. They might re-sign him. I don't understand the Fords. I don't pretend to understand the Fords. They operate at their own speed. So hopefully they realize their fans don't want this guy as a coach anymore. I can't think of any fan, regardless of how they feel, who will want this guy as their coach next week, because this is bad. And it's to the point where someone made a joke where like the Lions fans don't even acknowledge the fact that they're bad anymore. Like, we know we're bad. When we hear like the bad teams, like it doesn't really sting when people are like, oh, the Browns, the Bengals, the Lions. Like, it's like, of course, like, duh. Like, we know we're bad. This isn't an insult anymore. It's just kind of like a matter of fact.
I'm going to put you on the spot here and ask you, what do you think our record's going to be now? What are you thinking is now that with this team that you're seeing so far? It's a little bit of a cheat because we've got 2 games in, but now that you know what you know, where do you think we're going to land?
3-13.
Oof. Okay.
3-13. I'll say for like a best case scenario, 5-11. Worst case scenario, we're not going to lose every game. That's not going to happen again. That doesn't happen to franchises like that. But we're only going to at best win 1 game. So we're going to have a pretty good draft pick that we're going to probably squander on a player we don't need because, we can't really do anything right. So
Fletcher Nostradamus comes through with his numbers, and we will see how that plays out. So let's go over to what I know a lot of listeners care about, and I do as well. We've got Detroit City FC. It's the fall tournament. Before we get into this, because we're going to talk about a couple of the upcoming games, let's set the table for people so they're 100% clear what's happening here with this tournament format, because it's a little bit different than a regular season for this 2020-2021 campaign. So can you outline that for us really quick?
Whoever wins this fall tournament will not be like the NISA champion. They will be the NISA Fall League champion. NISA is doing their tournament kind of like the old NASL, North American Soccer League, and kind of like how Liga MX, the Mexican top league, does it, where they have a fall champion and they have a spring champion. And the 2 champions of those 2 will play each other for the overall league champion. So whoever wins this tournament will be like one half of a champion. Then whoever wins the spring tournament will be the other half of the champion. If it's the same team, then they'll take the runner-up from that and have them play another game. But yeah, it's confusing when you first hear about it, but after like it's explained, it makes some sense. So whoever wins this is the fall champion, but they won't be like the NISA overall league worldwide champion.
Well, it gives you some flexibility, I would think, with everything that's happening with the pandemic, that, well, if something does go sideways, you've at least completed a tournament.
And also it gives you a chance to like add in a new team, like not in the middle of the season. It's like, all right, we completed this first half. Now let's, add in some teams. Like I know Oakland Roots will be leaving after the fall tournament. So like this will be their last few games in NISA. I know they'll be adding a few more. I know Portland PDX FC is trying to move into NISA. I know Little Rock Rangers was trying to move into NISA. I think they settled for another league. But like it gives you a chance to like switch teams in and out, but also still maintain like your league format.
Well, we're going to circle back to Oakland Roots in just a second. But first, let's preview what's coming up with the Michigan Stars. That's the first game of this tourney. And what are you seeing for this? How do you feel about the chances?
Normally, I would say with the players that Detroit City FC have added, and Bakey Goodman, Cyrus Sadie, and Max Todd, like they would go back to walking over the Stars again. But the Stars do have a solid team. The Stars finished second in the East, just behind Chattanooga. The Stars had a legit chance to win the championship. They have a very stout defense. They're not really scoring that many goals, but then again, no one in NISA really is scoring that many goals. But they have a stout defense led by Tatenda Makruva, their goalkeeper, the Zimbabwe international player, who I'm still not really sure how he ended up out in suburban Michigan. But he played in the Africa Cup of Nations, played against a bunch of famous English Premier League players while he was playing in the Africa Cup of Nations, did a pretty good job. To see how this is going to shake out will be interesting. I think Detroit still wins. I think it'd probably be 2-1, 1-0, something very low scoring, but it'll give them a chance to still have a leg up to progress into the final round.
And then Oakland Roots is coming up on Thursday, which is a game I know that you're excited about. And it's kind of interesting because we're going to see this team just before they leave the league, which is kind of sad.
It really is. There's only one Detroit City. Like there's only one Chattanooga. There's only one Tulsa Athletic. These are very unique teams. But Oakland Roots is kind of a blend of all three, but still its own way. They have a tremendous following on social media. They have a tremendous logo. I don't know many lower-level professional soccer teams that have had their logo on ESPN multiple times, as people from the Oakland area have been embracing their logo, like Damian Lillard of the Portland Trailblazers, players from the Golden State Warriors have been wearing their logo a lot. Laney College, who were the main college for Last Chance U, Netflix show about college football teams being resuscitated. Laney College has been repping the logo because they're both in Oakland. So they have a lot of traction with the community, and it's really a great thing to see. It's really sad that they're leaving NISA, but I understand why they're leaving NISA, because they want to make sure that they can handle their own, and that makes total sense. NISA could go belly up. The league they're going to could go belly up, but they think they're making a better chance. I'm all for the team to do what they need to keep their team alive. The one thing I will say has been lacking, which is not the jerseys, not the logos, not the social media message, not the social justice message. Everything they've done has been great, except their play on the field. This has been their first year that since they've been around that they've actually had a decent team. It took a very long time for them to win their first game, and it was a scrimmage, actually, against a lower-level Mexican team last year. So I'm glad to see they finally kind of gelled together. They have a formerly famous forward in Jack McInerney, who has some Major League Soccer credentials. They have a few more players like Benji Hoya, who can control their midfield. I'm just really interested to see how they're going to come out, because they could come out really, really great, or they could come out really, really flat, especially because they're making the trip all the way from Oakland to Hamtramck, which I'm sure is not an easy trip to make.
So NISA has a geographic set of leagues, East and West. They don't cross the country all that often, do they? So this is kind of a new thing for them.
Yeah, they really only cross the country for playoffs. And even so, it's unlike professional teams, like major professional teams that have like charter flights and everything. They're coming in like a plane together, but it's not like a private plane. Or if they're going somewhere close, it's like they're taking a team bus together. It's kind of like lower level baseball. It's a little bit nicer.
Right. Well, just so the audience knows, Fletch, we're going to be talking a few more times coming up because we've got this fall tournament. We want to stay on top of everything that's happening. So, Fletcher Sharpe, I really appreciate everything that you're doing for us, taking a look at it. I understand that later this week, you're going to be at the field yourself.
Definitely. I was trying to get there tonight and to cover earlier in the week, but NISA jumped up and let us know a bit later than expected that in order to be a part of the tournament and do media, you had to get a spot COVID test. And they let us know Thursday, so it kind of left me not much room to scramble. But I got a test in. They'll get the results soon, and then I'll be able to be there from Wednesday forward.
Excellent. Looking forward to it. All right, Fletcher Sharpe, thank you so much for keeping up on all of this. We're going to be talking more later in the week. You can follow Fletcher Sharpe on Twitter at SaintFDW.
And you definitely should this time. Normally, I try to dissuade people from following me on Twitter. Unless you want to pay BN Sports to figure out what's happening, I'll be sure to get as much pictures and videos as I can so that people can see what's happening without needing to pay for an extra channel they won't really use.
Take care, my man.
You too.
File this under shameless self-promotion. A quick reminder to remember to become a member if you like what we're doing and can swing it. And you can do that at patreon.com/Daily Detroit. That's patreon.com/Daily Detroit. Also, you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We've had a couple of great ones lately. And yes, to that guy who wrote in, Engineer Randy is indeed working on making it so Fletcher doesn't sound like he's in touch from some sort of sports helicopter. We are working on that technical bit. We also have our voicemail and dial-a-podcast line if you want to give us a jingle at 313-789-3211. That's 313-789-3211. There you can leave your thoughts or listen to the most recent episode of the show. We also, because there's so much more, have our private Facebook group, Daily Detroit Podcast Fans. We're looking to do some more there if you're interested. With all of that, I'm Jer Stays. Take care of each other, and we'll see you around Detroit. Talk tomorrow. Well, especially for teams that maybe aren't as used to crossing the country, like the big pros are, right? Like, because NISA kind of keeps their teams in geographic areas for people who don't know, right? Thank you for your contribution, puppy.
Could you ask that again without her barking?